Good morning. My name is Dean Lundell, and I'd like to thank you for coming to TAG 21. I'm delighted to be able to be here with you this morning, and I hope that you will gain a new perspective on the markets and your trading from me. I promise not to show you any graphs or high-powered math. What I would like to do this morning is give you a brief exposure to the art of war, and then go through some of the more salient concepts in the book and how it applies to the world of trading. And then we'll finish up with a set of trading rules. Now, every new trader on the floor of the Board of Trade and the Merc gets a little card with a set of rules, just like this. And I converted them into some trading do's and don'ts. So at the end, we'll take a look at these rules and see if you can relate these rules to the concepts that we've talked about in the art of war. I have been a Wall Street professional for about 25 years now. I've been a vice president with Merrill Lynch Capital Markets. I was a principal at a regional investment bank, and I had my own trading firm, and I'm a commodity trading advisor as well. So as you might imagine, over the last 25 years, I have pretty much seen it all. And yes, I can remember the Dow at 700. In fact, I can remember the Dow at 500. When I first read The Art of War some time ago, I thought the concepts were so analogous to trading that it was incredible. They truly defined the nature of the game. And like many traders, I had gone through the various stages one does, from the know-it-all newbie to the seasoned and polished professional. But even with a long history in a primary dealer environment, I was admittedly overly computer dependent. The Art of War opened my eyes like nothing had before. So much so, I wrote down a series of the aphorisms in the book and related them to trading. And I showed these to a friend of mine who was also a trader, and he said that I should write a book about this. And after laughing about it, I did. And imagine my surprise when McGraw-Hill published it about 2.5 years ago. And since then, it's now in 6 foreign languages other than English. The Art of War has helped me to become a better trader, and it will help you to become a better and more effective trader as well. You will find the concepts to be very simple, yet it is their simplicity that makes them so elegant. Very simply put, the art of war is a guide to dealing with any conflict or contest. On several occasions, the Marine Corps has sent their commanders to the floors of the New York and Chicago mercantile exchanges. Now, why would they do that? Because the ebb and flow of the markets is remarkably similar to those of battle. In fact, one of their commanding generals was quoted as saying that on a daily basis, traders are at war. So if the markets have the fluidity of battle, then the art of war is your instruction manual as a combatant. So, who is Sun Tzu? What is the art of war? And why should you care? Sun Tzu was a 6th century BC Chinese general philosopher. He came from a family with a long history of military commanders and generals. And this was a period in China that was characterized by ongoing civil war and strife. To be candid, at the time the Art of War was a sales brochure for Sun Tzu to use to solicit whatever sovereign or ruler he happened to be selling his services to at the time. Sun Tzu was also a Taoist, so much of what he has to say you may find contradictory or paradoxical if taken as isolated concepts. The Art of War is a compilation of 13 lessons or chapters that he wrote on dealing with conflict and adversaries. The Art of War is not so much a methodology as it is a philosophy. The wisdom is so compelling that it has since become so widely followed that it is required reading at most military academies, including ours. A copy can usually be found on most CEOs' bookshelf. I know of a multiple Super Bowl winning team that uses the concepts in The Art of War. And in fact, several of the more successful firms on Wall Street use the concepts to run their businesses. The basic philosophy behind The Art of War is that the pinnacle of knowledge and strategy is to make conflict unnecessary. That the pinnacle of knowledge and strategy is to make conflict unnecessary. Sun Tzu teaches us that the art of war is not to be malicious and bloodthirsty per se, but rather to understand the power of mass psychology and how people can be manipulated through their emotions and how you can take advantage of that. The art of war tells us that the accomplished warrior is one that knows both the mechanics and the psychology of war, and then takes a rational rather than an emotional approach. In fact, the art of war makes a point of teaching us that anger and greed are fundamental causes of defeat. Anger and greed are fundamental causes of defeat. That it is the calm, cool, unemotional, and detached warrior that wins. Sun Tzu tells us that the way to use weapons is to carry out your plan only after first determining your strategy, after studying the climate, the terrain, your adversary, and then adapting your timing to the circumstances that you find yourself in. Action, absence of strategy, leads to defeat. Okay? Action, absence of strategy, leads to defeat. You see, while the ignorant fight to win, the wise win before they fight. The art of war will teach you to win without having to fight. Now, we could spend the next week discussing the concepts in the art of war. But what I would like to do this morning is concentrate on those concepts that are central to trading. Trying to give you an appreciation of how the game is played on the street. How to integrate technical analysis into your own trading plan and to think like a trader. Any successful engagement is a four-step process. First, there is a strategic appraisal, the big picture. The value of your strategic appraisal is that it is the focal point that everything else revolves around. It's the focal point that everything else will revolve around. Secondly, is a tactical or operational plan or methodology. Third is the choice or means to prosecute the engagement or the opportunity that you're looking at. And fourth is the acknowledgement of victory or defeat and an exit strategy. The art of war guided our conduct in the Gulf War. Now, what did we do? Did we arm our fighter aircraft with state-of-the-art weapons and say, well, why don't you just fly that away and shoot anything that moves? Of course not. First was a broad political and military strategy. Second was a tactical and military plan. Third was the means and method of attack. And fourth was the acknowledgement of victory and an exit strategy. Now, does it make any sense to run your trading business the same way? I think it does. Well, what is your thought process when you put on a position? What goes through your head? Some time ago, several of us were sitting around having lunch at the Ceres Grill at the Board of Trade. And most of us were seasoned pros, but we had a few new guys with us as well. One young man proudly announced his latest stroke of genius, that he was going to buy Canadian dollars. And we kind of looked around, and I spoke up, and I said, okay, why are you going to buy Canadian dollars? Well, because they were 78 and now they're 74. They're a bargain. They're cheap. They've got to go up. And I said, no. Give me a reason why you would want to buy Canadian dollars. Well, the stochastics were this, and the moving averages were that, and the relative strength index was well below 20%, and so on and so forth. And I said, no, give me a reason why you or anybody else would want to own Canadian dollars. He couldn't give me one. Of all the currencies in the world, what makes Canadian dollars the most attractive currency to own? He couldn't do it. And I can only assume that he was stopped out somewhere on its way down to 65. So, learn to think in terms of strategy first, then tactics and weapons. Strategy first, then tactics, then weapons. What is your strategic assessment of the market relative to other similar or competing markets? If you think Eurodollars are going to rise in price, why would they do that? What do Euro Yen and Euro Deutschmarks look like? Secondly, do the fundamentals support your strategic assessment? This is the self-diagnostic phase here. What is the central bank policy of the Federal Reserve, of the Bank of Japan, of the Bundesbank? Thirdly, technical analysis is the timing and means of your attack. This is the time to get out the stochastics, the relative strength indexes, the momentum, the moving averages, market profile, and so forth. You have to think about the more pragmatic considerations. Lastly, where are the stops and who is going to go after them? How are you going to manage your risk? What about unforeseen events? How are you going to manage those? Event risk is a major consideration on the street. And this is also where you use technical analysis to identify and quantify risk. Identify and quantify your risk. Secondly, think in terms of strategy, in terms of you, the individual trader. What is your plan of attack? How are you going to anticipate market reaction? How can you best position yourself to exploit weak opponents? How can you best position yourself to exploit weak opponents? What are going to be your tactics? What vehicles are you going to use to exploit this opportunity? Are you in the cash market, the futures market, the options market? Are you going to use a combination of 2 or 3? What are you going to do? What is the best use of your capital